Hello everyone and welcome to tutorial number 61 in a series of video tutorials for Java programming. Don't forget to click on the subscribe button and click on the bell icon as well to stay up to date with every tutorial I upload on my channel. In the last tutorial we completed the chapter of strings. So in this tutorial I'm going to start with exploring the Java.Lang package. Now as we already know, or you might already know, that this class string, okay, it is already defined in Java.Lang package, but we are not importing this package here because this package is automatically imported. That is how the Java programming language works. Okay, that is why it is not giving an error here, even though this particular class string, it is defined in Java.Lang package. We don't need to explicitly import it. Okay, even if you explicitly import it, it is not going to give any errors whatsoever. Okay, but that doesn't mean that you need to explicitly import it. You can even remove this line and still the program, it is not going to throw any errors. Okay, so this Java.Lang package, this is a very important package. This package contains a lot of classes, okay, which are mentioned here. It contains certain interfaces. It contains a few methods as well. These methods are defined inside the number class. Okay, we have already discussed these methods. Okay, but I will be just discussing it in brief manner here. And there are certain constants, okay, which are defined in the float and double classes. And there are some other methods, which we have not discussed in the type wrappers. That is, I am talking about the boolean, byte, character, integer, double, etc. All right. So let's get started with this tutorial right away without wasting any more time. So if you already remember, I already discussed the type wrapper boolean. Okay, if you remember this capital boolean with the capital B, it is a class and it is a type wrapper for this primitive type boolean. Okay, so in case if you don't remember this, I am just reminding you of all those things. In much the same manner, this byte with the capital B, okay, it is a type wrapper and it is a class for primitive type data type byte with a lowercase b. Okay, in much the same manner, this character, okay, with the capital C, okay, character, it is a type wrapper for this particular class. Okay, this character, it is a class and it is a type wrapper for char, okay, with a lowercase c. All right. And as I told you earlier itself, this class, okay, this class itself, it is a class in Java programming language. Okay, so this class, it is a class which is, okay, this is a class, I should say, this class, okay, it is already defined in the Java.Lang package, and this thing, it is a generic type of, it is a generic class. Okay, so here I can write class string or something like that, CLS, something like that. Now here you need to remember that whenever sometimes what even expert programmers do, okay, whenever they are creating the object of this class, what they may do, the mistake here is they will write CLASS here, and it is not going to work. Okay, why it is not going to work? Because if you already know that this class, okay, with the lowercase c, it is a keyword in the Java programming language. Okay, so whenever you're defining the object here, you need to be careful not to name it as the keyword. Okay, be extremely careful here. Many people make this mistake and then they wonder why it is giving an error. All right, so this class, it is a class in the Java programming language. Okay, and we have also discussed this thing earlier itself. Class loader, that is also a class, okay, which is defined in the Java.Lang programming language. Okay, this is an abstract class. This cannot be instantiated. Okay, so here you can read that it is an object which is responsible for loading classes. Okay, it is an abstract class, which means it can't be instantiated. Okay, so I already told you all those things. Okay, so this has a lengthy explanation. I cannot explain each and everything here. Okay, but one thing which you need to remember is that this class loader, it is a class which is defined in the Java.Lang package, because basically what we are doing here is we are exploring all the different, not all the classes I should say, we are exploring some of the classes, because it is impossible to explore all the classes in one or two tutorials. Okay, So we are exploring some of the classes. Rest of the things, you can do from your side. All right. Then after that we have this compiler. Compiler is also a class which is defined in the Java.Lang package, though right now it is deprecated. Okay, it is deprecated and it is marked for removal. That means in the later versions of Java, it is most likely this class will be removed. Okay, this double, again, this double, it is a class, it is a type wrapper for this primitive data type double. Okay, with a lowercase d. Okay, in much the same manner we have this enum. Now one thing you need to remember is that if I already told you, I don't remember whether I already told you this thing. Okay, this particular enum, let me see where is the enum. Okay, this particular thing, day. Okay, this particular day, it is going to derive from enum. Okay, it is going to implicitly derive from enum. I should say it is going to implicitly derive from enum, something like this. Okay. So this thing is implicit. You don't need to write this explicitly. Okay, this thing is implicit. Okay, there's no need to write this explicitly. Okay. So okay, this you cannot do these things. Okay, classes, they cannot directly extend java.lang.enum, because you cannot implicitly write this, even though you can, I should say, you cannot explicitly write this, even though implicitly behind the scenes this is what is happening. Okay, so one thing I would like to show you here is to prove that this particular day it is extending from that enum class. Okay, for that I will like to go to the source code. I will like to go to the source code of that particular enum. Okay, navigate to that particular class, okay, which is named as capital enum, okay, with a capital E, I should say. Okay, now here you can see there are certain methods. Here you can see that we have the name, okay, we have ordinal, okay, we have this hash code and all, we have equals. Okay, so what is going to happen if I try to access this name method? Okay, now remember, this name, it is a non-static method. Okay, you need to remember each and everything. Okay, if it is a non-static method, you need to create an object. Okay, so first of all, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create an object, date.thursday. Okay, dot name. Okay, now this particular method name, it is actually defined in here. You can see, here it is explicitly mentioned, java.lang.enum. Okay, it is defined inside this particular thing only. Okay, so what I mean to say is this particular enum, okay, it is not explicitly, it is implicitly deriving from this particular class. Okay, and here also you can see this is an abstract class, which means it cannot be instantiated. In much the same manner, we can access the ordinal also. Okay, we can access the other method as well, like we can access the compare to, okay, we can access get declaring class, etc. Okay, so all these methods are accessible. Okay, so in much the same manner, I can write ordinal here. Okay, if I remember right, I already shown you this particular thing, but if you I did not say that these methods were defined inside this enum class. Okay, but I have informed you about this in this particular tutorial. This ordinal method, this other method, name method, they are all defined inside this particular class. Okay, and implicitly this particular enum, it is going to derive from this particular enum. Okay, extend from this particular class, I should say. Okay, it may sound a little confusing, but bear with me. Okay, because that is how the concept of Java works. Okay, then after that, this float, I already discussed this particular type wrapper. This float, it is a class, it is a type wrapper for it is a type wrapper for this particular float. Okay, with lowercase f. Okay, so then after that, we have already discussed all those things. That's why I'm not going into a lot of depth. Okay, otherwise I'll be simply wasting time here. Okay, so then after that we have integer. So this integer, it is nothing but it is a type wrapper. Okay, it is also class for, okay, this int. Okay, this int, it is a primitive data type and you already know that. Okay, all right. Then after that we have this math. Okay, math. Now this particular math class, okay, if this particular math class, mostly it contains static methods, okay, and it contains, you know, methods for, you know, finding out the absolute value of a number. Okay, here we can see that we have a constant here, a constant defined as e. Okay, the value is 2.718, something like that. Okay, then after that we have you know, adding the two numbers, add exact. Okay, then we have a method for finding the, you know, sine, cosine, tan. Okay, then we have copy sign. We have the function for finding the cosine value. Okay, then floor. Okay, so these are basically, you know, I should say mathematical operations like finding the maximum value of two numbers, minimum value of two numbers, okay, multiplying two numbers with each other, something like that. Okay, the list is very long, so you know, you can explore it from your side as well. Okay, like for example, finding out the power of two numbers. Okay, then after that, this particular method, random, it is for printing out a random integer, random double. All right, then after that we have this square root, finding out square root of a number, etc., and all those things. Okay, so this particular pi, it is a constant value. It is defined inside this math.pi. Okay, so like for example, you know, you want to find the area of a circle, okay, using a Java programming language. Okay, so what you can do, you can simply write pi multiplied by radius into radius. Obviously radius, it is going to give error here, but you know, you get the gist here what I am supposed to do. Float area equals to math pi into radius. Okay, then here you can write float radius equals to 7.0 or something like that. Okay, so that is how the thing is going to work. Now here it is giving an error because this math.pi, it is a double value. Okay, so that means I need to convert this also to a double. Okay, so you know, so for performing, you know, actions like this, okay, the Java.Lang programming, this math, it already provides you the value of math.pi. I should say the value of pi. Okay, it is actually 3.14 something, 15 something. Okay, but it is already defined inside this pi. Okay, so you don't need to define the pi here. You don't need to use 22/7. You can use it if you want, but it is completely up to you. Okay, then after that you can simply write system.out.println area, and it is going to print the area of the circle whose radius is 7. Okay, so you know, these are the certain things, you know, which is enabled by this math class, I should say. And we have already discussed this number in enough detail earlier. Okay, this number, you know, it is a super class of math. Okay, super class of this this long, integer, okay, float, double, etc. Then after that we have object. Now I cannot, you know, stress this enough. I already told you numerous amount of times, this object, it is a base class of all the classes in the Java programming language. That means even this class tutorial, it is going to extend from object. Okay, even this class tutorial, it is going to extend from object. Okay, even though I have not explicitly mentioned it here, but it is going to you know, extend from this, it is going to explicitly, not explicitly, implicitly extend from object. Okay, then we have a class named, not a class, we have an interface named as package, okay, which is defined in Java.Lang. Then after that we have a process. Okay, so I'm not going into enough details here. Okay, if you know operating systems, okay, so you will know that there is a process. Like for example, you know, this particular executable, this particular IDE, okay, it is running in a separate process. Okay, this calculator or something like this. Okay, this particular I should say that particular web browser, it is running in a separate process. Okay, then this particular thing, this Visual Studio Code or this Notepad or this Windows Explorer, it is running in a separate process. Okay, so you know, that is what is the concept of the process. And you know, if I type process here, okay, So this is a class which is defined in a Java.Lang package. Okay, so you can read this from your side. Okay, then after this we have process builder. So process builder is again, it is the same concept for, I think it is for creating new processes, I think. Okay, creating a new process, I think create operating system processes. Okay, so start method, it is going to create a new process instance with the attributes. Okay, so these are just a class. You just need to remember that these are the classes which are defined inside the Java.Lang package. Okay, then after that we have the runtime method. I should say runtime class, sorry. I'm extremely sorry, it is a class, not a method, sorry. Okay, so this runtime class, okay, so you can read here that every Java application, it has a single instance of the runtime. Okay, so you cannot create multiple instances of this runtime, because this constructor of this class runtime, it is private in nature. So here if I try to create the instance of this runtime, it is going to give an error. Okay, why it is giving an error? Because this runtime constructor, it has private access. Okay, it has private access in Java.Lang.runtime, so it's not going to work. All right, so in much the same manner we have runtime permission. Okay, we have security manager. Okay, I think runtime permission, it is for handling certain permissions, I think. Okay, you don't need to go into a lot of details. Okay, these are just methods, some classes, okay, which are defined in the Java.Lang package. Okay, it is for runtime permissions only. Okay, fine. Then after that we have a security manager, okay, for handling the security of the Java application, I think. Okay, security manager. So here you can see here, if I hover over this, it is allowing the application to implement a security policy. Okay, so you can read this if you want. Okay, I'm not going into enough depth, because that is not the objective of this course or of this tutorial. Okay, we have this short class. Okay, this class short, I already told you, this is a primitive data. This is not a primitive, this is a type wrapper for primitive short with a lowercase s. Okay, so then after that we have stack trace element. Okay, then we have strict math. Okay, now this strict math, what exactly is this strict math? Okay, if I type this strict math and hover over this, here you can see that this contains methods for performing some numerical operations like exponential, logarithm, square root, trigonometric functions, etc. Okay, usually we don't use strict math. Okay, generally we use math only, because what happens that inside this math, this particular functions, they are going to call methods of this strict math only. So generally we use math only, but in certain cases we may need to use strict math. Okay, so then after this, string buffer, string builder, we have already discussed these in enough detail. Okay, then after that we have this system. Okay, we use the system.out.println in every tutorial. Okay, almost every tutorial I used it. Okay, so whenever I did the programming. Now system, okay, this particular class, okay, it is a class which is defined in Java.Lang. Obviously I'm not importing any package here, that means it must be defined in Java.Lang, because the Java.Lang package is the only package which is imported automatically, okay, without any user interruption there. Okay, so this class, it cannot be instantiated, which means okay, that means probably this particular class, it also has a private constructor. Okay, it cannot be instantiated means it also has a private constructor. Okay, obviously, and that is the error which is shown there. Okay, and this is for generally for handling standard input, standard output, and all those things, and we already know these things. Okay, so I am not going into a lot of depth now. Then after that we have thread. We have already discussed this thread in enough detail earlier. Okay, we have already also discussed exception, throwable. Okay, now this void is something which is interesting. Okay, it is not a type wrapper for this void. Okay, don't think it like in that manner. I never discussed this void in a type wrapper. So this is not exactly a type wrapper. Okay, so if I hover over this void, then what it is showing, it is an uninstantiated placeholder class. Okay, so which is holding a reference to a class object referencing the Java keyword void. Okay, but the problem, which comes with this issue is that I cannot define a, I cannot define an object or something like this here, like a local variable void t, something like that. That is not allowed. That is the problem which comes into the picture there. And let me try to define a local variable with void type, and I don't think it is going to be allowed. Yeah, it is not allowed. Okay, illegal type void. So now these were all the classes. Okay, I should say this was some of the classes, because as I said earlier, it is impossible to explore all the classes in a single tutorial. Okay, so what I'm going to do in this tutorial is I'm just going to explore these interfaces and then call it a day. Then in the next tutorial we'll be discussing about the certain methods, we'll be discussing the certain constants, etc. Okay, so now these are some of the interfaces. Again, I'm saying these are some of the interfaces, not all the interfaces. Okay, there can be even some other interfaces which are defined in Java.Lang, but as I said earlier, it is impossible to explore all the classes and all the interfaces in just one or two tutorials. So we are just I am just exploring some of the classes, some of the interfaces. Okay, so now after this we have this appendable. Now appendable, okay, this is an interface, so obviously I can implement that. Okay, and obviously it is going to give an error here. Okay, so if I implement the methods, then these are the three methods which I need to implement. Okay, so I need to implement the append with char sequence. I need to implement this method with int start, int end, and this particular thing. Okay, and all of these are throwing certain exceptions. You don't need to worry about all those things. These methods are defined inside appendable. Okay, and all of these methods are abstract in nature, and that is the reason why I need to implement this over here. Okay, then after this what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove these methods. Okay, then after that I'm going to type comparable here. Okay, so comparable. Now this comparable, you need to remember this is a generic interface. You need to write something here, like for example here I'm going to write integer. Now another thing, if you remember, you cannot write int here, you cannot write int here, it is not going to work. Okay, type argument cannot be a primitive type, please keep that in mind. Okay, I need to write integer here, that is the only thing which is allowed. Then after that I can implement the methods here. Okay, implement the methods. So only one method, it has only exactly one method compared to. Okay, then I can do the comparison, and then whatever value is going to return, I can return it over here. That is the functionality of this method. Okay, so this particular interface, it contains the compare to, okay, method. Okay, that is why I need to explicitly implement this particular method here. Then after that we have the runnable. Now runnable, I already mentioned it earlier when I was discussing the thread class. Okay, so I don't think I need to discuss that in enough detail here. Okay, it simply contains the public void run method, and that is what I am going to override here. Okay, so I am not going into a lot of depth here. I already discussed this in enough detail when I was discussing the concept of threads in the Java programming language. So then after that we have the char sequence. Okay, so char sequence means, if I remember just 2 or 3 tutorials ago, I told you that this class string, okay, this class string, okay, it is going to implement the char sequence. Okay, that means now if I implement the methods here, okay, here you can see, okay, these are the methods which are defined in the character sequence. Okay, I can define the length here, I can define the character as a particular index. Okay, these methods must be extremely familiar. I just discussed this 2 or 3 tutorials ago, if you remember. Length of a particular string, character at a particular index. Okay, these were all the methods which are defined inside the string. But actually this method, this string, it was implementing this character sequence, and these methods, they were abstract methods of this particular interface. Okay, but we already discussed these methods in the previous tutorials. Okay, previous 2 or 3 tutorials if you remember. Okay, then after that we have iterable. Okay, now one thing I need to mention here is, we are not discussed the concept of iteration or iterable in enough depth here. Okay, so I think we will be discussing this later on, but it is always good to know that it has this method iterator. Okay, inside the iterable, this particular interface, it contains this particular abstract methods. Okay, now you might have when I was entering this particular method by clicking on this and implementing these methods, okay, you might have wondered that what about this method, what about this method. Actually, these methods are not abstract in nature. Okay, this is the only method which is abstract in nature. Okay, that is why it is mandatory to implement this thing, but it is not mandatory to implement this thing. Okay, so let me just show you the proof of this thing. So I'm going to go to the navigate to the particular class iterable. All right, I'm going to the iterable. Now here you can see this particular function or method, it is abstract, it doesn't have any definition, but this particular method, okay, it has a default implementation. Okay, if I don't think I have mentioned the default implementation. Okay, but there is a concept known as default implementation, okay, for interface. Okay, so this particular method also, it has a default implementation. So if it has a default implementation, then that means that that method is not abstract in nature. Okay, so it's very interesting, right? There are a lot of concepts in Java. There can be abstract methods in Java, in the interface I should say, and there can be non-abstract default implementation methods in the interface in the Java. Okay, then after that finally we have this cloneable. Okay, if I implement cloneable, then I need to implement now here this method, once again you can see here, I have implemented this particular method, but it is giving no error whatsoever. So what is the reason behind it? Why it is not giving any error? Okay, the reason why it is not giving any error is because this cloneable, okay, it is already implemented I should say by the object class, and this tutorial class is going to extend from the object class only, and that is the reason why it is not giving any error. Otherwise, if I go to the source code, okay, if I go to the source code of the cloneable, okay, what do I see? Here you can see that actually it has no methods. Actually it has no methods. Okay, public interface cloneable, it has no methods. Okay, so that is why it is not giving any errors. Okay, so disregard the earlier reason. Okay, then after that we have the readable interface. Okay, so this also has certain methods. Okay, exactly it has one method, read. Okay, so these are all the, I should say, some of the interfaces or some of the classes, okay, which were defined in the Java.Lang package. It is, once again I'm repeating, it is impossible to go through all the classes or all the interfaces in the Java.Lang programming, Java.Lang package. Okay, so that's all I've got in this particular tutorial. In the next tutorial, what we are going to do, we are going to talk about the methods in the number, okay, in the class number, and we are going to discuss certain constants and certain methods, etc. Okay, and some other concepts are there which I will be introducing in the next tutorial. Okay, so that's all I've got from this particular tutorial. If you have any kind of doubts or any kind of questions, then don't forget to post in the comment section below, and I will get back to you when I can. And if you liked this particular tutorial, then don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and yeah, I will see you in the next tutorial. Till then, bye.